Hello and welcome to the Providence College podcast. I'm your host today, Chris Judge. Joining us this week is Jon Mason from the class of 1996. Jon is a former baseball player and the founder of the company SwingJuice, a former energy drink company turned apparel company. Jon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be back.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. I want to start, go way back, way back. How did you decide to come to Providence College, and what brought you to here to obviously play baseball, like I said in the open?
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up in Norwood, Massachusetts, so just about 30 minutes north of here. And, as I got into my junior and senior year, again, it became evident to me that I possibly could have an opportunity to play, at the next level in college baseball. So, the entire process from my junior year to senior year, visiting different campuses, talking to different coaches and, being recruited by different programs, from Division I, II, and III, again, just kind of sitting down with my parents, we sort of, we looked at all of the options and, quite frankly, my dad was like, PC is probably the best option for you for not only for baseball, but for academics, because at the time, PC had just come off a Big East championship. Again, Big East baseball at the time was such a, really competitive, league. So we just kind of sat down and said, all right, let's give PC a run and see what happens.
So you get here and you had a tough freshman year. You guys weren't that good.
Correct.
But by the time your junior year, you made it to the College World Series regionals. What was that experience like?
So, it's amazing, just the progression. I think when I first got on campus, it was just like, wide-eyed, like I can't believe, this is actually happening, playing with, Lou Merloni, and then, like seeing, because, again, I had followed PC baseball from, basically my entire senior year. So, Earl Smith, all these guys that I kind of saw on the program, I would come to games, but then to actually be playing with a lot of them. And then, I mentioned Lou. Like, Lou is probably the best baseball player I've ever played with. And then, to see him, progress in his career and just knowing that I had spent that time with him. And, again, the whole experience was just, sort of out-of-body experience most of the time. I think I played with a total of, two guys that ended up playing, like having long Major League Baseball careers, which, when people ask me about, Providence College baseball, rest in peace, that, now that it's defunct, a whole nother conversation. But, to have a cold weather school and to have, produce that many successful players is a rarity. So, again, the whole experience was phenomenal. It's something that obviously I've never forgotten.
Did you cross paths with Johnny Mac?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Johnny Mac was another player I played with. And again, another tremendous long career.
Yep.
Again, another tremendous talent on the baseball field. Just really unassuming guy, great guy, but it was amazing to see him.
Man, we all got to see him a lot, being Red Sox and Yankee
Absolutely.
Fans in this part of the country when
great.
he was with the Blue Jays.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. AL East, between Lou and Johnny Mac, it was. Again, it's been fun to kind of watch those guys.
And now Lou being the new voice of the Red Sox.
I know. Lou's made a name for himself. So it's funny. So when I played at Norwood High, we played in a league called the Bay State League, and Lou, again, we were for 3 years apart. He played at Framingham, so again, I was familiar with him just through high school. But then when I got here, I really got to see Lou as the superstar, and I just knew immediately, like, this guy's going places. And same thing with Johnny Mac. I mean, he was like a vacuum in the infield, and you just knew, like, all right, this guy's special. Like, something's going to happen here.
So you played baseball, but you also got a degree in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to want to do marketing here at PC?
Honestly, I have to say, like, when I was going through my college application with my parents, and my mother was helping me. She was like, what do you want to do when you go to PC? And I said, well, I want to play baseball. So she's like, no, you have to pick a major. So she's like, you know what, marketing looks like it would be good for you. So I'm like, okay, marketing sounds like it's the way to go. And honestly, it's funny when I look, where I am now with our brand and my business, and I kind of think back to those days in high school when I was trying to just decide what I wanted to do, and then eventually when I got here. That's just how my brain has always worked. So I think it was clear that that was the right choice for me.
So you graduated in 96.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do when you first got out?
So right out of college, I worked at a job in Boston, just sort of something to have, nothing that I ever saw as like a career type of deal, and ended up working at a hotel. But then 2 years after I graduated, I ended up moving to California for 2 years. So I had a friend, another PC alum, who he was living in Pennsylvania, living at home, and he said, you know what, hey, why don't we? We were both living at home at the time, and both were single, and we were just kind of like didn't know what we were wanted to do in our lives. So we had another friend who lived out in California, so we kind of talked and said, hey, let's move across country with no plan, no money, but we'll see if we can make it work.
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to the 03, 04 area. I think you know where I'm going now.
Yeah.
You're out with a bunch of buddies playing golf.
Yep.
And this idea for SwingJuice came up. Can you give us a little background on how that started?
Sure. So, like you said, 2003, 2004. So at that point, I had moved back home. I was living in Boston at the time, working in real estate. And again, this is sort of where my marketing head was, So at the time, I was really started to get into playing golf, and I had always been sort of a workout nut. But I was fascinated by the rise of these energy drinks that were out there. Again, Red Bull at the time was, just sort of doing all these great and crazy things from a marketing standpoint. Guerrilla marketing I thought was cool. Vitamin Water, same thing. Vitamin Water was really, at the time they were independent, but they were just doing a lot of cool things on the marketing side. And then there was a lot of other drinks that were just, kind of trying to follow their lead. So I thought, wow, that's kind of an interesting space. So I was scheduled to play golf with a bunch of friends of mine. My buddy called me the Friday night before we were supposed to play on a Saturday morning. He's like, hey, we have an early tee time. It's like a 6:30 tee time. I'm like, wow, it's like super early. And he's like, no worries. We'll just drink our SwingJuice and we'll be ready to go. And I was like, that's an interesting name. And again, it was just odd that I was thinking about energy drinks. I was just like kind of watching that space, as a consumer and as a marketer in my head. Like I thought that was pretty fascinating. Then, I just said, all right, well, SwingJuice is kind of a cool name for maybe a golf energy drink, because I was obsessed with golf at that time. That's when I first became obsessed with golf, and it obviously has continued for, every day since then. But, I thought, wow, that's a cool name. So we ended up playing golf the next morning. I came back, and it was literally that afternoon I got back. I just started searching, like, if anybody owns the name SwingJuice, if anybody owns the domain SwingJuice. Looked up the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office website. Nobody owns SwingJuice, so I said, okay, let me buy all the domains. So I bought the domain name that day. I applied for a trademark for SwingJuice energy drink at the time, and that's really when SwingJuice was born. So, the next couple of days, I just truly became obsessive about the idea of creating this drink. But then I sat back like the Monday, after, I'm like, well, what am I going to do with all this? Like, I don't know how to make a drink, how to make anything with this. What am I going to do with this? So that was sort of the beginning of, the journey until now.
So like you said, it's a really tough industry.
Yes.
Like you've got the monsters of Coke and Pepsi, and then like you said, you had Red Bull doing cliff diving and doing all these other crazy events. Vitamin Water had 50 Cent at the time as one of their first investors. Correct, Like, how could you get your foot in the door?
And that was the thing. So it's like, I decided in my mind I wanted to make an all-natural sports energy drink. So, but again, I had no background in doing that. So it's like, I'm looking at this brand idea that I have, and then I'm thinking, okay, I want it to be an energy drink, but I'm like, how do you take that and get liquid in a bottle? It didn't make sense to me. So for a full year, I really immersed myself in trying to figure out that process. I at the time, I bought every single energy drink that was available on the market, and I researched every single ingredient that was in every single one. And, I taste tested every single one. So in my mind, I had an idea of, what I wanted to go in the drink based off of what the different ingredients did, kind of a flavor profile that I was looking for. So I really kind of just hand wrote the formula for the product. I knew I wanted ginseng in there, B6, B12, niacin, vitamin D, for all the different properties that it brought to you. I wanted a lower amount of caffeine. I didn't like the way Red Bull made me feel because it had, more than a cup of coffee of caffeine of a cup of coffee. But I also like the benefit that caffeine can give you to help you with your concentration. So I took all of that, figured out the flavors, and I ended up finding a lab in Utah, of all places. I'd called around to labs, in co-packers all over the country. And, every time I would get the answer of either no or, yeah, I can produce this for you, but I have to produce like 10,000 cases of your idea. And I'm sitting there thinking like looking at my garage, like I can't fit 10,000 cases of anything in there. So I found this lab in Utah that they were able to produce 3 cases for me. It costs more money per bottle, but at least I could get a sample and see, what this was all about. So we went through that process. I sent them my formulas. We signed an NDA, sent them my formula, and then basically they just converted my formula that I had written down to like a real world scientific, something that we could actually make a product with. And then over a course of about 3 months, we just went back and forth. They would send me samples. I would send back the feedback, and then finally we came up with the product that ended up being the first, ever SwingJuice energy drink. It was a lemonade flavor. And then, from there I said, okay, well, they sent me blank bottles, so I was in my kitchen or in my office in my apartment at the time, and printing out labels on my computer, sticking them on, and then I just said, all right, well, I'm going to give it a shot. So I put a few cases in the trunk of my car and started driving around to golf courses and pitching the product, and got a couple of sales. So it just sort of developed from there, and then it just, and then the fire, really started.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast you were on, and the other host compared it to selling mixtapes out of the trunk.
Pretty much, which is ironic because that's part of our apparel collection now. But yes, 100% was doing that.
So when did you realize that it was time to make a change and head towards this different angle?
So it was 2004 when the official SwingJuice energy drink came on the market, and from 2004 to 2013 I just basically was trying my hardest to break the beverage industry. So again, a lot of trunk cases in the trunk of the car, driving to golf courses, to supermarkets, to convenience stores. We ended up getting into Whole Foods, which to me was a big goal of mine, just because it showed the quality of the product. At the high point of distribution, had about 300 locations throughout New England that were distributing the product, and we were really pretty hyper local. But it was about 2012, 2013 where the beverage industry can be a really tough climb, and if you don't have either super deep pockets from an investor base or a really strong distributor partner, it's impossible. I mean, you're fighting Coke and Pepsi, and vitamin water, Powerade, and then Gatorade, obviously, Red Bull. I mean, I remember one time I was trying to produce some product before the summer, so the summer was obviously our busiest time. And I remember, we were cutting it close to get product delivered on shelves for Memorial Day. And I remember my co-packer, he called me at the time, and he's like, hey, John, I got to push your distribution back 2 weeks. And I'm like, 2 weeks? Like, then that brings us into June, and then we're sort of missing a window. He's like, listen, I got vitamin water coming in. They have a last-minute run that they have to do. I have to push you back. He's like, listen. He's like, John, vitamin water will spill more product in an hour than you will produce for the next 5 years. So that's when I was kind of like, okay, I'm like up against, the big boys. So, but during that time, we had a good amount of golf courses. That golf was always the base of the brand. That's how it started, and that's really who our customer base was, especially in golf courses. So I could see the writing on the wall that the beverage wasn't necessarily going to take off the way I wanted it to. But I knew that, golf and sports and lifestyle was just something I wanted to try to continue with in whatever shape or form. So, again, when you think back to 2013, 2012, 13, and 14, social media was just really starting to become like an everyday part of people's lives. And I said, all right, well, I got the beverage, but that's not really going to work out. I have this brand that is focused on golf, and I think that could work out. People are starting to really live their lives on social media, so why don't I just make a pivot and try to make some cool golf T-shirts? That's really how it started for me.
So were you, when you were doing the drinks, was that your full-time gig, or was that just a passion project still?
It was a passion project still. So I still was working and, trying to, at that time, I had gotten married and, just started a family. So it was still a sort of a side gig. My basement office was my office. But yeah, so I think, starting in around 2012, 13, I just started, again, doing research, similar to what I did with the beverage, started to do research in the apparel business. Like, how does this work? How does e-commerce work? Redesign the website, because it wasn't e-commerce friendly, and then decide, all right, well, I want to try to make this an e-commerce brand. So basically redesigned the website between 2013 and 14, and then in February of 2014, turned the lights off on the beverage and turned the lights on the apparel, and SwingJuice, the apparel brand, was born.
So when you started, how many designs and products did you have?
Started with 10 designs, so 10 graphic T-shirts, and really kind of how that started, again, was still always a golf nut. I big fan of the game, professional game, and just I was kind of looking around, and sort of a little side story. I've always been sort of into fashion, from an observer, and just like into different types of clothing. So I was looking at the golf industry, and I thought there are no cool golf T-shirts. I thought I'm like, it would be cool to have some cool golf T-shirts, and that's really how I started. And I started to put together things that I thought would be cool. I thought it'd be fun because it was different than what was out there. And started with about 10 designs, and I'm telling you, the first day, as soon as the website turned over, and I didn't tell anybody that I was doing this, other than my web developer at the time, a friend of mine that helped me do the website. I didn't tell anybody we were doing the switch, and then first day started to get orders, and I was like, okay, this could go somewhere. And the biggest thing for me, that didn't have a lot of inventory. So with beverage, you have to prepay the inventory. With this, it was at least in the beginning, it was sort of building it as you go. And again, it became my new obsession, within my obsessive years about SwingJuice.
So back in 2014, you were one of the first companies to do this type of stuff with the designer T-shirts and different designs and funny T-shirts. And what do you think now separates you from all the other companies that are out there?
Yeah, I honestly think that the fact that I believe that we were the first to start going down this road, but now that we've evolved, I do believe our product is the best quality product out there. We definitely now we've evolved into having a team. I feel like what sets us apart is our customer service and our kind of back end operation there. And again, I think we are truly different. When you look at our designs and you look at our product line, we are different than almost anybody else in our space. And I think that's something that will continue to prove out going forward. And I'm just really excited to see where we end up with this.
So what is the process for a design, or how does a shirt come about?
Yeah, so in the very beginning, it was just really kind of me racking my brain for ideas of again what I thought was cool, and now the process is we're really trying to design into seasons, into almost like a typical fashion cycle. So that process will really start. So if we're talking about like next spring, that process is starting now. So we're almost like a year out. And then so that's mainly for our performance, like our polos or performance quarter zips and hoodies. For T-shirts, we try to do the same thing, but it's also a lot of it is pop culture based. So if a cool event happens, if a player does something fun, we try to, revolve a collection or a design around that as well. So, my mind is always thinking of different ideas. I have notes on my phone. I have notepads. I mean, it's kind of, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, an idea will pop in my head. I'll try to draft it out, and then I get together. We have a few designers that we work with, and we try to hash it out. But ideas are always coming. But we're trying to organize it now, where we're truly doing a fashion drop every quarter, and then again, our social media is the biggest way that we engage with our customers.
So your headquarters now are in Pawtucket. What brought you back to Rhode Island?
So it's funny. So came back to Rhode Island after I was in California. As the story goes, moved back. You meet a girl, blah blah blah. 2 kids later, we ended up in Lincoln, Rhode Island. So, when I was doing SwingJuice, transitioning from the beverage to apparel, obviously it was just me doing it. So I was doing it out of my home in Lincoln, and then in the years as the apparel started to grow, I started to bounce around to different office spaces, and finally got to a place where we started to really grow and scale, and just needed a true facility where there is fulfillment, there is production. So we more or less do everything in house in Pawtucket, and it to me it's the shortest commute of my career, which is a happy place for me. So. It's a great spot to have.
So when you started, were you contracting out with printers and printing on demand, and are you still printing on demand, or how does the process work?
So now we have 4 different printers that we work with, and we it's all contract based. We don't physically print in house. But we have great relationships with all our printers, so it makes sense for us, and we're super quick turnaround. I think in a lot of cases, especially when we're talking about our T-shirt orders, even like the high point of our business, like Tyler can speak to this. We get orders out within a day or two. In some cases we beat some of the major retailers that you're out there that are known for their fast shipping. So it's great to have the entire operation sort of under one roof. And makes it more efficient for us.
You mentioned it earlier about social media and marketing in general, the concept of 360-degree marketing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your strategy with that and how that has propelled the brand forward?
Sure. Really early on, especially as I started to transition more towards apparel. Again, this goes back to when Instagram was really starting to become an everyday thing, other than just sort of a goofy little app that you share pictures. Facebook, Twitter. I really embraced that. I really would try to create these themes around golf, obviously, because that was the basis of our brand. So memes became something that I probably was an early adopter of that as well. But I would try to post things that would get somebody's attention to our account, or accounts, and then start to weave in the product. So that is a strategy that has still remained something that has been effective to this day. It's like trying to get people to notice you, because as within our space and any other space, it could get crowded really quickly. And consumers now, especially digital consumers, they have really a quick attention span, so you have to grab them when you can. So between our social media, we have a whole CRM system where we have people that have signed up on our mailing list, and we keep constant communication for that. And as I mentioned earlier, just trying to keep our website fresh and new. And then obviously our longer term strategy is to create more internal content to show who we are as a brand, what we are as a brand, and just really try to be consistent across the board.
And so I can tell by going through the website and looking at the products, you've evolved. You've started with the golf, you've moved on to baseball, you've now licensed baseball licensing, You're doing projects with golfers for charity.
Yeah.
talk about the evolution of where you started with just T-shirts, and now you've done all these items, different types of fleeces and quarter zips, and how that's the evolution of your brand.
Yeah, it's been, interesting. I talk about this.
I forgot. Pickleball shirts.
Pickleball is taking over the world. I never thought I'd say that, but it's true. It's funny because a lot of this it's really sort of been an evolution. I think from the very beginning I had this vision of what this brand could be. I always pictured it as a lifestyle brand. I think I said that to myself back, years ago when I was doing the beverage. I didn't really know what that meant, but I do believe that we're evolving into a lifestyle brand. I think a lot of the cues and partnerships that we've received are, just either from customers suggesting, hey, you should think about doing this, or or brands that are approaching us like, hey, maybe we can work together. And that's really how a lot of that has evolved. Major League, the MLBPA, who's one of our great partners, one of their reps followed us on Instagram, and they just simply DM'd us like, hey, have you guys ever thought about doing baseball? Let's get on a call. That evolved into our partnership with the MLBPA. Same thing with USGA. Again, through like back channels, like people found out who we were. They thought they liked what they saw. We've done a few trade shows, and I think those are important in the marketplace because people get to try and feel and touch your product and talk to your team. And I think that that's really how the USGA that we work with the U.S. Opens for the next several years, which is great. But a lot of that really just has evolved from trying to get ourselves out there and taking cues from suggestions from customers. Trying to take advantage of partnerships that sort of present themselves. And you speak of pickleball. So we did a trade show. We do the PGA merchandise show every year, or I've been to it 12 times at this point. I exhibited twice as a beverage, and this year we just completed our second year as an apparel company. So last year, somebody came by our booth who ended up being one of our clients for our golf apparel. And he said to me, after our initial meeting, he's like, oh, you should think about getting pickleball. You should think about getting into pickleball. And I said to him, what's pickleball? Because I'd never heard of it at that point. This is literally a year ago. So he explained to me what pickleball was, how they're based in Georgia. It's big down south apparently, but again, I'd never heard of it. So kind of dismissed it, did a little research on it. I'm like, oh, it looks cool, blah, blah, blah. 3 months later, we were talking, and he's like, oh, where are the pickleball shirts? And I go, the what? He's like, remember that thing? Oh, that thing you mentioned. Yeah, okay, sure. I'll think about it. Again, sort of dismissed it. But from that point forward, I would say, like, it went from, like, every couple weeks to every week to almost every day I was getting a request for pickleball, whether it be somebody that was following us on social, whether it be one of our customers, or just friends that are like, you really should look into pickleball. And so that's when I, again, started to really do research. And then I saw that, LeBron bought a team in a league, and Tom Brady, and all these celebrities were buying teams and leagues. So I'm like, all right. Then I saw pickleball was on TV one day, and I'm like, okay, this isn't going away. So I just put together a quick little pickleball selection for graphic T-shirts. And from day one, it has taken off to now we're really starting to develop a pickleball line, but we're starting to work with like pickleball partners, people that have pickleball facilities, pickleball restaurants. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it, how much that sport has exploded. But it works with our brands. SwingJuice, you can connotate that to pickleball. So
yeah, the swing still works.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you also seem like you're flexible in product types, because I noticed also during the pandemic, which we're still kind of in.
Yeah.
You guys had a line of masks as well.
Yeah.
So is that keeping that flexibility? Is that a
absolutely?
Strategy?
We do have a relatively small team at this point, even though we're growing and expanding, and we're nimble. We don't have to really deal with any red tape from a corporate standpoint. So if we decide we want to go after a product that makes sense, we can quickly turn that around. And usually it'll start as a test, and if a test goes great, then we'll expand it. If a test goes poorly, we'll get rid of it. But yeah, that's a great example. I mean, it's something that we definitely can make moves on product lines or categories that we think make sense. Give it a test. If it works, all right, we run with it. So it's definitely part of the ecosystem that we're working with on there.
So being here at Providence College and having a teams in the Big East, and the new Wild Wild West is NIL.
Correct.
Has there been conversations at SwingJuice about capitalizing on NIL?
Absolutely. So it's interesting. When NIL first came on the scene, it's the Wild Wild West now. Back then, it was it was just a total free for all. So we just kind of quickly developed a program athletes were reaching out to us from all different, universities and colleges and all different sports. And, we put together deals with individual athletes to try to become ambassadors of the brand. And, it really has been like an eye-opening experience, And, again, just, full disclosure, we're in current talks with a possible opportunity here at PC, which would make me, beyond excited, and hope it all works out. But it really is an interesting landscape, and I think it's truly changed college athletics. I mean, for a lot of different reasons, but I do think it's great. I do think there are, a lot of people don't realize, like, when you play college athletics, regardless of the sport, regardless of the level, it is a full-time job. And you're spending a lot of time practicing your sport, spending time, away from what your normal, college activity would be. And, again, especially when you talk about the larger schools and universities, the larger schools and universities are the larger sports. And I'm mainly thinking of, the football programs of the South. Those are obviously like top tier. Same thing with any top tier sport and any university. I mean, there's the colleges get compensated pretty heavily, and I think the athletes play a big part in that. So I personally I think it's good to see that's evolved, and I'm sure they'll get some more regulations on it. I mean, you see some crazy deals that some of these 17, 18-year-old, 20,
quarterbacks
19,
down south.
Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
I don't think
I'm sure you would have loved a little Golden Cross deal when you were here.
Loved it. A Ronzio deal would have been
right?
great. It would have been phenomenal having Ronzio every single week. But yeah, no. So it's fascinating, and as like everything else, it's evolving. So we'll see where it all ends up.
So do you have any advice for young entrepreneurs? Obviously, this is the Providence College podcast, and we've got 3,800 kids out walking around us. What advice would you have for young entrepreneurs who are trying to get in?
I think for me, it truly became something that was obsessive to me. So if you have an idea that you're really, if you can't stop thinking about it, start working towards it. You may not have all the answers of what the end result will be, but if you work every day towards your goal, and whatever that is, I think eventually, if it is something that is really passionate, to you, and it's something you have a real strong sense of, it's something you want to do. Like, don't be afraid to go. There are so many more opportunities out there than you realize, and even if the thing that is the most passionate, or the thing you're most passionate about, even if that doesn't work out, you could get an opportunity somewhere around that, that could end up being the thing that breaks you through. And just network. I mean, that was one of the things I did early on. I just, I knew the idea that I was going for. I knew the category and the space that I wanted to be in, and I just really focused in on that. And I tried to meet as many people in that space as possible. And that really, it sounds like a thing that, it's almost like a throwaway networking, but, in a lot of cases, in a lot of different industries and a lot of different avenues, it truly is about who you know and not what you know. So, get yourself out there and really, focus, really drill down on what it is you think you want. Start working towards that, and then try to meet as many people within that space that you could possibly meet. And who knows, you may get a great opportunity that comes out of it.
I have to admit, I probably screwed up on this podcast, because this should have been done out on the golf course.
We still
probably should have just recorded a conversation.
It's actually not bad
while we
out.
played.
It's not bad out.
Well, and I guess Friday it's supposed to be really warm.
It's supposed to be nice on Friday. So my suggestion is we do a part 2.
All right.
We have a new collection that's dropping in this over this next month, so that kind of coincides with the good weather of the golf season. So maybe we do part 2 on the golf course, and we'll test it out. We'll do a little test kitchen type of thing.
There we go. My son, both my sons, they watch golf on YouTube every day, every morning. They're watching either a mini golf YouTube channel or an actual golf YouTube channel. They're obsessed.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And it's like when I think of just sort of the evolution of how I've had with SwingJuice and how consumers have reacted to the brand. Your example right there is that's the next evolution. Like we're deep in the process of trying to create some content for that generation that does not watch TV.
Yep.
They'll never watch the PGA Tour other than highlights, but they'll watch just
I must have the exception to the rule thing.
No. Believe me, I watch it every week.
No, like my son will go, can we turn on the golf on ESPN Plus?
Yeah.
Can we watch the featured group?
Yeah.
Caleb, I don't even know who those guys are in the featured group.
My kind of people.
All right, man. So we got Waste Management coming up this weekend.
Yes.
We're recording on the Wednesday before this comes out.
Yep.
So we've got the 16th hole in the stadium hole. It's always a fun time watching that one.
On top of that, you got Super Bowl weekend at about 15 minutes away. So
I thought you would have made an excuse to try and take a business trip.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to go the last several years, and every time I see the crowds, I'm like, do I really want to be in the middle of that? It always kind of crazy.
Good point.
And then this week, just friends I have that are out in Phoenix, they're like, stay away.
Yeah.
It is just the crowds are crazy, the traffic's crazy, it's wild. I mean, granted, it's a lot of fun if you're able to get to some of the cool events surrounding both, but. Yeah, it's mayhem out there, but it's fun. It's fun for golf. Like I love watching it on TV. I mean, it's a trip
if you live out there, that's the Airbnb for a weekend.
It is. That's what
rent your house out like the Augusta residents and get out.
That's what they've all said. That's the week they plan their vacation to get out of town because it's just total mayhem. But that's a great thing for the sport. It's like again, anytime that for me at least. Anytime that you can bring golf to like a mainstream viewing, that's only going to help continue to, quote unquote, grow the game.
All right. This is a quick one. What is your handicap?
So I always describe my handicap as from before I had kids to
oh man, I know that.
Now, right? So before I had kids, the lowest I got my handicap to was a 9, and I was literally trending towards a 7. Had my first child, didn't touch clubs for a full year. Had my second child, so now my handicap hovers somewhere between probably 15 and 18. But I hardly play anymore.
We're right around the same.
The
same reasoning too.
Right, exactly. So,
we used to have a golf league here that played at Triggs every Wednesday afternoon, and then once I had a kid, it was like, can I spend 3 hours playing 9 holes at Triggs because it's the slowest walk you've ever had?
Right.
And then another 2 hours having dinner with buddies.
It's an event. But now anytime I can get out, I love to get out. I just love being out there. I don't even worry about what I shoot. I just want to be out there playing, hitting the balls, and just having a good time.
What is a typical day like for you?
So typically, morning. Like I said, I have 2 kids, 2 young kids. So mornings are usually getting them off to school, and then once I get to the office, it's kind of meeting with the team a little bit, and then usually I'm on calls for most of the day, whether it be design calls or potential partner calls or distribution calls. But a lot of the time it's being on calls, and then when I leave the office, it really kind of continues at home. Granted, I'm doing stuff with the kids, but I'm always connected, which it's a blessing and a curse. It's just, for me, it's like a 7-day-a-week thing. I just don't ever turn it off. Which, again, it can be good, can be bad, but I don't know. It's just how my brain is wired, and like I had mentioned several times, I'm obsessed with it. I love it. So it just doesn't seem like I'm working, but I truly love it. And I'm excited to see where all this can go.
You haven't put the simulator in the office yet?
Not yet. Trust me, I have priced them out. I have researched them. I've hidden some. So we were in the PGA show last week or 2 weeks ago, and again, it's like golf heaven. It's like a true golf industry show, but you see all the simulator companies and all these virtual putting companies now. They'll build almost like a putt in your
Yep.
wherever you want to put it. But it's got all the measurements and the lasers to show you where you're supposed to hit your putt. So it's on the holiday wish list for some point in time.
So I think that's all I have for you today. We may have to pick this up in a part 2 sometime.
Listen, we'll pick this up on a golf course.
All right.
I like that idea. But yeah, thank you for having me. This is great. I mean, anytime I get a chance to come back on campus, I love it. It's amazing how much it's grown, how beautiful it is now, and yeah, I'm excited to get back. So maybe we can get over to we can go to Triggs, or we can find another spot we can play.
I like it. Let's give one last plug for SwingJuice if you can.
So SwingJuice, you can find us at swingjuice.com. That's our website where you find all of the great things that we're doing from an apparel standpoint, from golf to baseball to pickleball, and soon to be other sports. On social media, you can find us. All of our channels are at SwingJuice. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, you name it. It's at SwingJuice. And you can find me personally. I'm the SwingJuice guy on Instagram and Twitter. So yeah, give us a follow, check it out, reach out. We'd love to see new faces.
And I got to give a product shout out for one shirt that I saw for us people in around our 35 to 50 in that range.
Yep.
That new Happy Gilmore shirt that's out.
Yes,
that's a
classic.
That's a banger right there.
Instant classic. It's yeah, that's along the lines of what we try to do. Just put out some fun gear that, especially I'm a big nostalgia retro type of guy. So everything we put out, I try to put some sort of a retro nostalgic spin to kind of make you think back to happy times. So
I will say I told my 10-year-old who I was interviewing today. Well, he's 9. He'll be 10.
Mm-hmm.
Who I was interviewing, I showed him the youth section on the website.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to scroll far. He saw the Tatis one, and his jaw just dropped.
All right. Perfect.
He loved it.
Perfect. Hey, we got to start them young. That's that's always our motto.
So golf and baseball for my kids. We're all set.
Beautiful. You're one of our own. So welcome to the family.
Thank you, and thanks for coming in.
Yeah, Chris, thank you so much. This has been great, and like I said, we'll do part 2 on the golf course. So I'm looking forward to that.
And as a thank you to our listeners and Friar family members everywhere, Jon and SwingJuice are taking part in our Friars Shop Friars program. Just visit swingjuice.com and use the code GoFriars25, all one word. It is not case sensitive, to enjoy 25% off the huge selection of products we talked about in today's podcast. That's swingjuice.com, code GoFriars25 for 25% off everything you heard about today. You can also visit the other Friar-owned businesses that are taking part in Friars Shop Friars by visiting alumni.providence.edu/friars-shop-friars. A link will be in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Providence College podcast. Episodes are released every Monday on all podcast platforms, including smart speakers. Please email podcast@providence.edu with show suggestions, and thanks again for listening. Go Friars!